We're going to talk about the Pittsburgh offense, which is one I've been hyping up for a while. Feels like Green Bay and Pittsburgh both need a somewhat of a get-right game for the offense. Both teams have had struggles in recent weeks. Do you think there's any signs of hope for either of these two teams?
Well, as you say, like both these teams really need performances. I mean, I've got on John Love at time. He's QB 17 in total points per game. I've got on Kenny Pickett plenty of times. He's QB 32 in points per game. Kenny Pickett, he's thrown one or fewer touchdowns in 20 of his 21 career appearances. He's got one 300 passing yard game in 21 appearances. Fantasy football, Pickett scored 14 points in 16 of 21 games. That is not good enough for fantasy football. Even as your QB3 in Superflex, those kind of numbers aren't helpful. When you hit bye weeks, I'm in a bunch of leagues where I'm looking at having to start Kenny Pickett, and it feels miserable. But this game does feel like there's an opportunity for both teams to be able to not necessarily get right, but be able to put some points up. You know, Jordan Love, he's not been a top 13 QB since week 3. But the Steelers, their pass defense isn't as tough as it's been over the last couple of years. You can get at them. I think I'm really interested in the running backs on both sides. Aaron Jones was unleashed last week. 24 touches after not having more than 11 touches at any point so far this season. He turned it into 99 yards, 18 PPR points. Even Najee Harris, like Green Bay, they allow the 10th most fantasy points to running backs, the 8th highest yards per carry. And Najee, he's top 10 in big run rate, which isn't something he's always been over years. I've got on him about that kind of stuff. And he's struggled to bypass Jaylen Warren, who is the RB35, Najee's RB39. But it just feels like this is the kind of game where you can get into the end zone, you can probably accumulate enough yards against a Packers defense that year after year don't live up to what we hope from them. So I don't mind starting Najee. I don't mind starting Jaylen Warren at a push. We've seen how explosive he can be. Deontay Johnson, he's averaging like 84 yards per game and 6.6 receptions per game since he came back. Pickens, I mean, it's a dart throw. It's boom or bust, much like Christian Watson on the other side. These are players that you can put in on best ball or DFS, and you can live with the zeros because we're shooting for ceiling outcomes. But in redraft, they're incredibly difficult players to start. I'm not seeing anything this week in particular where I'd feel more comfortable starting them. The Steelers are weak against slot wide receivers. So if you want to take a complete dart throw in DFS this week, you could maybe start Jaden Reed, but he's kind of faded away a little bit, sadly, after that he flashed to start the year. And then in terms of tight ends, I feel like both sides you can just ignore the position, really.
Yeah, I think Musgrave's got some interest, some upside, but he's certainly not carved out as big a role as we hoped when he flashed early in the season. I think the Pickens, he's basically not produced when Deontay's been in the game. I think his splits are something like 16 points per game when Deontay's not played and 8 when he has. I guess there's a potential squeaky wheel narrative, which you know I love, Tom, that he's been moaning. There's been some cryptic Instagram posts. Maybe Pittsburgh start to feed him a ball, but yeah, I think Deontay's the real guy here. He's QB wide receiver 19 currently in points per game. That includes the game he left halfway through injured. I think he's a high-end wide receiver too when he's healthy and on the field, quite frankly.
Yeah, I mean, if the problem with Pickens is that what does it look like when he is the wide receiver, like when he does get fed? Are we going to see 15 points because he's getting those deep downfield targets? And, you know, you can pick up one catch for 60 yards and still only walk away with like 7 PPR points. What we need is like what Deontay Johnson gets, which is sustained volume which he can then, you know, try to break some routes and try to break some yardage. So unless Pickens gets into the end zone, I just really have very little faith that he's actually going to put up a really good fantasy day.